Hi, I'm Meryl Key, and this is my mystery school. Here are the planetary transits, moon phases, and zodiac details to let you know what is happening and why in July 2024. And there's some soupy ground to trawl through before a mid-month combustion between Mars and Uranus in Taurus. That's a big one. There's also a new moon in Cancer and a full moon crescendo in Capricorn that shakes a lot of the debris out and makes things very clear. If you want horoscopes for your individual sign, check out my Astrology Dice videos put out at the beginning of each month, where I roll the dice and do a planetary snapshot for each sign of the zodiac. And thank you for supporting my channel. We'll start with the planetary overview and then crunch down the main events and what it means for you. And then I'll wrap it all up at the end so you know exactly what is happening and why. Here's the astrology for July 2024. We are still in the midst of a celestial undertow, and the outer planets are shifting the ground beneath our feet. For a few months yet, there's going to be an eerie sense of being in a world between worlds, biding time or preparing for something that's unseeable, just out of grasp, dissolving, restructuring and reinventing all that you took for granted. Pluto and Neptune are both hedging at the cusp between signs, starting a slow back pedal into the place they've just been. Pluto's retrograde at the gateway between Aquarius and Capricorn, and here's Sedna at the gateway of Gemini, in full support of Pluto and the transformation that awaits. But Capricorn is a stickler for rubber stamping the final decree, and Pluto needs to make a quick dip back into that sign to finish the job. This next few months could bring a crushing end to traditional Capricornian institutions, and with Sedna, the rise of new forms. For example, empires are no longer reliant on a physical structure, like a retail shop or an office building, or a human workforce to monopolize business. And it could mean something like banking, a Capricorn thing, becoming dismantled and decentralized through blockchain and cryptocurrency. Let's face it, Capricorn institutions like democracy and capitalism could be undergoing a completely new outlook. Sedna channels a mysticism and a sense of destiny in Pluto's journey back into Capricorn. She's offering a choice to continue on with something you've outgrown or fearlessly surrender to a bigger life. Neptune, at the very outer edge of Pisces, is literally in the space between the end and the beginning. This here is the cusp of rebirth. From dissolving into spirit to incarnating into a new life in Aries, night and day. On July the 2nd, Neptune comes to a virtual standstill, metaphorically stuck in the birth canal, before turning retrograde and edging back the way it came. There's something your soul wants you to answer, and it's delaying the birth until you address it. All this retrograde in such sensitive points of the zodiac wheel could give you vertigo for the first week of July. Fears and doubts can come up in the transition, and you'll need to have a massive BS detector to manage the swirling illusion. Things aren't what they seem, and there's other planetary interference that means you could easily grab the wrong end of the stick. With this moving quicksand, time is not linear. Reality can blur. Or you could wake up from a dream. Your perspective can shift or even fragment. There's a cleansing going on, and it's laying bare something of your spiritual truth, beyond the stories and the hang-ups you built up to protect yourself. At the same time, you're able to reimagine and reconnect to parts of your life you thought you'd lost. It all depends where you tune in and trust your inner voice as to whether you can experience this as stuckedness or a necessary integration. The new moon in Cancer on the 6th, the sign of the mother, is also a birthing time. And there's something in this moon that signals a challenge and a significant development for women and women's roles. The sun and the moon are at 14 degrees Cancer, opposite Ceres. Ceres is also a mother figure, Mother Earth, the provider of all nourishment and on whom we can rely. She's opening a door for supplies and food production, but she also represents big weather and the ability to change the seasons. Ceres is one tough mama and the only Olympian able to force a negotiation with Pluto to release her abducted daughter. Between now and the full moon later in the month, there could be a build-up of negotiations with what has been held hostage. And look at the chart. There's a lot going on, but there's also a beautiful symmetry. It's filled with trines and sextiles. They're the blue lines. And these red lines are oppositions that show where the tension is held. It's something wanting to bust out, but it's held within. This pattern is called a mystic rectangle. It's bound by the blue lines, which are harmony. They say, let's work it out. Everything's fine. The blue lines can rebuild, repurpose, and hold it together when the going gets tough. All the conflict, the red lines, are contained within. So let's unpack those red lines, because within a few days, the new moon is done and Mars is heading into a war zone with Uranus. And that's where the mystic rectangle busts out of its contained stasis. Here's Pallas in Scorpio, opposite Mars in Taurus. And Juno in Virgo is opposite Saturn in Pisces. Outside of this mystic rectangle, we've also got Venus square Chiron, which might act as the straw that breaks the camel's back. Pallas and Mars are both war planets, but Pallas uses strategy and creative intelligence to reach a judgment, while Mars is more point and kill. Pallas is also big on negotiation. She does investigations, royal commissions, committees and official reports. She gathers the information before she hits home. She's a goddess that represents justice, equality, and independence for women. Opposite Mars, she's going into battle for her rights. Perhaps it's a legal battle, a conversation that keeps going back and forth, or literally a war. Pallas has gathered the information to present a truth, but she's having a tough time getting the concept across to Mars, because Mars in Taurus can be really stubborn, territorial, and a bully for conservative values. The other line of tension is this opposition between Juno and Saturn. And it also packs in a buzz with codes of conduct, agreements, expectations versus reality. A decision, a pact, or a partnership is being called to account. And look at this mystic rectangle. It actually looks like a Juno symbol. Juno is the queen of the heavens, and here she's writing something in the sky. We need to look up. She's known as a big indicator for marriage, but she also rules over childbirth and women's sexuality. She's politically savvy, noble. She's a boss lady. She can negotiate power wisely for the sake of stability, and she can commit to the agreement. But she demands equality. There's bound to be retribution if she's been dishonoured. Up against Saturn, the restriction planet, Juno could be speaking about oppressive laws related to childbirth, fertility, marriage and wage inequality. As Mars is on the move and it's heading straight into a conjunction with Uranus, the harmony of the mystic rectangle is unlikely to hold, and all that was nice is going to reach a limit. On a personal level, the new moon is dragging you through an inner conflict that's hard to express and make clear. There's an inequality eating at you and you're reaching a tipping point. Relationships are the source, but this could play out at work, in the home, in a friendship group, or in the courts. Or maybe you've tried multiple times to address this and just got nowhere. Looking at these blue lines over the new moon phase, and you can see that Saturn's supporting the justice that Pallas is seeking. And Mars and Juno are both in earth signs, so they're on the same page. Outside the mystic rectangle, Chiron is square Venus, and that is also a really sensitive point, where a feeling of rejection or exclusion could get poked. Her vulnerabilities are laid bare, and there's a sting that could become a catalyst for something bigger. New moons in Cancer can help you let go of what you've been holding. They can dissolve a hard shell and release the emotional baggage. With this new moon and the mystic rectangle, a compromise could be reached, but the whole story might not be fully ironed out until the tension contained within that mystic rectangle can also find balance, justice, and a commitment that holds. Is that likely? Not this week. Mars is soon going to break the truce and the rectangle separates. Within a week, Mars is heading straight into an argy-bargy with Uranus. This coupling is the main feature of the July astrology, and it ripples out with everything that came before and everything that will come after. From the 14th to the 18th of July, you put on notice to be hyper-aware of tripwires and triggers. Mars and Uranus conjunctions are eruptive, forceful, and a bit shattering. So mid-month has a defining before and after moment. Mars is action and adrenaline, brute force. Uranus is electrifying, unpredictable, splitting. Together, you can see that they merge into an accident waiting to happen, an uprising of discontent, or a dramatic burst of raw energy that upends the table. And you know what? This could be sexual energy as well. From the 14th to the 18th is the most unstable time, but any carelessness or provocation between the new moon and the full moon could tempt fate. All gambles come with a high risk in that period, and there is always a reckless and cavalier charge when these two get together. In tarot, it's the Fool and the Tower. The best plan here will be to stay out of trouble, slow down, have patience, and avoid the risk. This is the time not to be foolish and not to try to hold up what no longer supports you. And that leads into the crescendo at the full moon. This is the second Capricorn full moon of the year, so it closes a chapter that became self-evident a month ago, at the solstice around June 21. And to emphasize the point that we're in the final act, this moon is at 29 degrees Capricorn, conjunct Pluto just on the other side of the gateway at 1 degrees Aquarius. Pluto's moving retrograde, and the moon is both lighting the way and blocking the path before Pluto gains entry. This is a bold move on the part of the moon, like facing a fear, naming a hidden desire, or revealing a secret. The moon is acting like a big mirror into the underworld, and you can't look away from what you see. A lot can be revealed, including a glimpse of what life could be with a new sense of autonomy and personal power. Who are you really? And what would you change? Because now is your chance. Are you ready to give something up and unburden yourself? Neptune's tuned in, and it's creating a perfect retrograde undertow to dissolve and restructure. And Uranus is also supporting the full moon. They've moved into positions to restructure what the mystic rectangle could no longer support. Any change or disruption is ultimately for the best. It's bringing some inspired brilliance into that full energy that wants you to jump off the cliff. But it has to be said, we have a bit of a communication, a transport or a contract issue that could make words over the top, shouty and self-centered. And there's a bit of a brain zap that goes with it. Mercury's in Leo, and he's at odds with Uranus. And everyone wants to be heard loud and clear. Mars has joined up with Sedna. And this combo is also plugging into Pluto and the Moon. This is putting an urgency and insistence on change. Change is inevitable. But what goes down around this third week of July brings up the grievances to the surface so that they can be aired. And at this stage, it's way better out than in. The full moon on the 21st is holding Pluto to account. This is where you face the truth, and you need that to be allowed entry back to correct the past, dismantle the remnants, and sign the decree that puts an end to a kind of slavery. We are looking at a whole new system. The first week and that lead up to the new moon, things aren't what they seem. Beware of scams and promises and illusion. Neptune and Pluto are in a very retrograde cuspy position. So you could either see this as stuckedness and going around in circles, or use it as a pause for integration, for it to make a necessary adjustment. The Cancer new moon on the 6th brings a catalyst. Chiron square Venus is showing up that some part of you has been excluded or disadvantaged, and it's ready to speak. There's an issue of justice and equality here. And you've tried to be nice, but the balance has now tipped. You can channel the power of this mystic rectangle by being really clear in your facts before you pass judgment. And be prepared for a surprise response. Compromises could be reached, but they may not really solve the underlying problem. And that brings us up mid-month, where the combination of Uranus and Mars ripples out like shockwaves. There is literally earthquake energy involved in this one. So it's a time that becomes really accident prone. So be aware, don't take on risk. Trust your instincts. This is not the time to be petty, because it could easily escalate into some place you didn't want to go. This rocky patch mid-month will show where the inequalities and the frustrations need attention. And that pushes the energy up into the full moon on the 21st, conjunct Pluto, to put an exclamation mark on the build-up of the past month and put an end to an issue that's bubbled away probably since the end of last year. By now, you have the information. You've seen what you need to see. An untenable situation is ready to be signed off, and that's going to be a big relief. The question to ask, who are you really? And what would you change? Despite the overall feeling that you're moving backwards in order to go forwards, that you need to break something to bring progression and development, and that you're losing your grip on the things you used to control, this is a time where inspiration and brilliance and synchronicity will point you in the right way and disappear what's not right for you. I'm Meryl Key, and this is my mystery school. You can find me on Instagram at my_mystery school, or contact me through my website www.merylkey.com. See you next time.